Grant Winston thought he was the king of New York. He walked into his company's most important gala with his mistress on his arm, telling his wife to stay home and clean the house. He laughed as he introduced his girlfriend to the board of directors, claiming his wife was nothing but a dead weight. But Grant didn't know one thing. The mysterious angel investor holding 51% of his company's debt wasn't a bank. It wasn't a hedge fund. It was the woman he left crying at the kitchen table. And tonight, she isn't coming for dinner. She's coming for his head. The penthouse at 432 Park Avenue was silent, save for the rhythmic clack, clack, clack of Grant Winston's dress shoes hitting the Italian marble floors. He adjusted his silk tie in the hallway mirror, admiring the sharp cut of his Tom Ford tuxedo. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO of Winstone Dynamics, a logistics firm that had just secured a monopolistic contract with the Department of Defense. Or at least, that's what the public thought. "Amelia!" Grant barked, not bothering to turn his head. "Where are my cufflinks? The onyx ones. I specifically asked for the onyx ones." Amelia Winston emerged from the walk-in closet, her face pale and devoid of makeup, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She was wearing a simple grey oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. In her hand, she held the velvet box containing the cufflinks. "They were right where you left them, Grant," she said softly, extending her hand. Grant snatched the box from her, his fingers brushing hers with cold indifference. He didn't look her in the eye. He hadn't looked her in the eye in 3 years. "You look tired," Grant sneered, finally glancing at her reflection in the mirror rather than the woman herself. "God, Amelia, do you even try anymore? Tonight is the Golden Gala. The press will be there. The board. Potential investors from Zurich. I thought—" Amelia started, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought I was coming with you. I bought that blue gown you liked." Grant let out a short, cruel laugh. He turned around, fixing the cufflink into his sleeve with practiced ease. "You? Go to the gala? Amelia, look at yourself. You've let yourself go. You're depressing to be around. You just stand in the corner and embarrass me. No, I need someone vibrant on my arm. Someone who matches the energy of Winston Dynamics." Amelia looked down at the floor. She knew who that someone was. Crystal Banks, his executive assistant, who had been promoted 3 times in 6 months, despite never sending a single email. "Besides," Grant added, checking his Rolex, "you have work to do here. The cleaning staff is off this week. I expect this place spotless when I get back. And don't wait up. I'll be celebrating the merger." "The merger isn't finalized, Grant," Amelia said quietly. "You still need the signature of the Sequoia Group, the anonymous majority holder." Grant froze for a second, then rolled his eyes. "Don't pretend you understand business, Amelia. You're a housewife, a charity case I picked up from the suburbs. The Sequoia Group is just a shell company for some old guy in the Hamptons. He'll sign. Everyone signs for Grant Winston." He grabbed his phone, which lit up with a text from Crystal. "I'm downstairs, baby. Bring the champagne." Grant smirked. "Right, I'm leaving. Don't burn the house down." He walked out the front door without a goodbye. The heavy click of the lock echoed through the massive, empty apartment. Amelia stood still for a full minute. The silence returned, but this time it felt different. It didn't feel lonely. It felt charged. Slowly, Amelia walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching Grant's black Maybach pull away from the curb 80 stories below. Her posture changed. The slump in her shoulders vanished. Her chin lifted. She walked back to the master bedroom, but she didn't go to the bed. She went to the back of the walk-in closet, pushed aside a rack of Grant's winter coats, and pressed her hand against a hidden panel in the wall. Click. Whir. A safe opened. Inside wasn't jewelry or cash. It was a single sleek black laptop and a stack of legal documents stamped with a red wax seal. The Sequoia Group. Amelia pulled out her phone. Her contact list was short, but powerful. She dialed a number saved as Mr. Henderson, legal. Mrs. Winston, the voice on the other end answered immediately. Or should I say, Madam Chairwoman? It's tonight, Arthur, Amelia said, her voice unrecognizable from the timid whisper she had used moments ago. It was ice cold. Is the helicopter ready? Waiting on the roof of the energetic building next door, ma'am. The styling team is already on board. Good, Amelia said, her eyes narrowing as she looked at the empty spot where Grant had stood. He wanted someone vibrant. He wanted someone who matches the energy of the company. I think it's time I gave him exactly what he asked for. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was dripping in gold. Chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over New York's elite. Waiters in white gloves moved like ghosts through the crowd, offering flutes of Dom Perignon to senators, tech moguls, and oil barons. In the center of it all was Grant Winston. He was holding court near the ice sculpture, one hand in his pocket, the other wrapped possessively around the waist of Crystal Banks. Crystal was stunning, undeniably. She wore a red dress that was cut dangerously low, designed to grab attention. She laughed loudly at everything Grant said, tossing her blonde hair back. "Grant, you devil!" Laughing loudly was Simon O'Connell, the CFO of Winston Dynamics. "You really think the Sequoia rep is going to show up? We've been emailing a ghost for 6 months. Grant took a sip of his scotch. "Simon, relax. Sequoia is just playing hard to get. They've pumped $200 million into the company already. They aren't going to pull out now. Tonight is just a formality. I'll charm whoever they send, sign the papers, and by tomorrow morning, we'll own the logistics routes from here to Tokyo." Crystal giggled, running a finger down Grant's lapel. "Grant can charm anyone. He charmed me. Didn't you, Tiger?" The men around them chuckled, though some of the wives standing nearby exchanged disgusted glances. Everyone knew Grant was married. Everyone knew Amelia. She was quiet, sweet, and had stood by Grant when Winston Dynamics was just a garage startup. Seeing him parade Crystal around like a trophy was distasteful, even for this crowd. "Where is Amelia tonight?" asked Mrs. van der Hoven, the wife of a major banking CEO. She was an older woman with sharp eyes. "I haven't seen her in months." Grant waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, you know Amelia. She's fragile. Not really cut out for the high life. She prefers staying home. To be honest, I think the social anxiety is getting to her. It's better for everyone if she stays where she's comfortable." "Comfortable," Mrs. van der Hoven repeated dryly. "I see. Enough about the past," Grant said loudly, raising his glass. "To the future, to Winston Dynamics becoming the first trillion-dollar logistics family." "To Grant!" Crystal cheered. Suddenly the music stopped. It wasn't a gradual fade. The live orchestra simply cut off mid-note. The chatter in the room died down as confusion spread. The massive double doors at the top of the grand staircase, doors that were usually kept closed until the keynote speech, slowly began to creak open. Grant frowned. "What is this? I didn't order a show. Simon, did you organize a surprise?" "Not me," Simon muttered, looking nervous. A hush fell over the room as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed on the marble. 2 massive bodyguards in dark suits walked out first, scanning the room with professional menace. They stood on either side of the door. Then a man walked out. It was Arthur Henderson, the most feared corporate attorney in Manhattan. He was known as the Grim Reaper of Wall Street. If Henderson showed up, it meant a company was either being bought or destroyed. Grant's throat went dry. Henderson? What is he doing here? He represents the Sequoia Group, Simon whispered, his face draining of color. Arthur Henderson walked to the railing of the staircase and looked down at the crowd. He didn't smile. He tapped a microphone he was holding. "Ladies and gentlemen," Henderson's voice boomed through the speakers. "I apologize for the interruption, but the majority shareholder of the Sequoia Group has arrived to conduct the final audit of Winston Dynamics before the merger can proceed." Grant let out a breath of relief, forcing a smile back onto his face. He whispered to Crystal, "See, just an audit. Probably some old guy in a wheelchair. Watch me work." Grant stepped forward, buttoning his jacket. "Mr. Henderson," he shouted up the stairs, "welcome. We are honored. Please bring the chairman down. Let's get him a drink." Henderson looked at Grant with a strange expression. It wasn't respect. It was pity. "The chairman couldn't make it, Mr. Winston," Henderson said calmly. "He passed away 3 years ago. His assets were transferred to his only child and sole beneficiary. She is the one who has been buying your debt. She is the one who owns 51% of your company. And she is the one who is here tonight." "She?" Grant blinked. Henderson turned back to the open doors and bowed his head slightly. A figure stepped out from the shadows. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath that sounded like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the Plaza Hotel. She was wearing a gown made of midnight blue velvet that hugged every curve, with a slit running up the thigh. Around her neck sat a diamond necklace that looked heavy enough to sink a yacht. The Star of Sierra, a piece rumored to have been lost at auction last year. Her hair was no longer in a messy bun. It cascaded in glossy, dark waves over her shoulders. Her makeup was sharp, fierce, highlighting eyes that burned with a cold, terrifying intelligence. Grant squinted. The woman looked familiar, but the aura was wrong. This woman radiated power. She radiated danger. Then she began to descend the stairs, her heels clicking with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Grant's glass slipped from his hand. It shattered on the floor, splashing champagne onto Crystal's red dress. "Hey!" Crystal shrieked. "Watch it!" But Grant didn't hear her. He couldn't breathe. He felt like the floor was tilting. "Amelia!" he whispered. It was impossible. The woman on the stairs looked like Amelia, but Amelia was a mouse. Amelia was a housewife who wore sweatpants and stuttered when she ordered pizza. This woman paused halfway down the stairs. She looked out over the sea of faces, her eyes scanning until they locked onto Grant. A slow, cruel smile spread across her red lips. "Hello, Grant," Amelia's voice rang out, amplified by the acoustics of the room, though she held no microphone. "You told me to clean the house." She took another step down. "So," she continued, her voice dropping an octave, "I decided to start with the trash." The silence in the ballroom was shattered by a nervous laugh. It came from Grant. He stepped over the shards of his broken champagne glass, his face flushing a deep, angry red. He decided to play the only card he had left: gaslighting. "Ladies and gentlemen," Grant boomed, spreading his arms wide, trying to hoard the attention back to him. "My wife, always with the dramatic flair. I told you she's been taking acting classes." He marched toward the stairs, his eyes pleading with Amelia to play along, while his jaw was set tight with a threat. "Amelia, darling, very funny. You got me. Now come down here, apologize to Arthur for the prank, and let's go home. You're making a scene." Amelia didn't blink. She reached the bottom of the stairs, and the crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. She didn't walk toward Grant. She walked past him, straight to Arthur Henderson. "Mr. Henderson," Amelia said, her voice crisp and professional. "Do we have the projector ready?" "Yes, Madam Chairwoman," Henderson replied. He signaled to the tech booth. Behind the stage, a massive screen descended. "Amelia, stop this now," Grant hissed, grabbing her arm. "You're embarrassing me. You don't own 51% of anything. You buy your clothes at Target. I give you an allowance." Amelia looked down at his hand on her arm. "Remove your hand, Grant, or my security detail will remove it for you." Two towering men in suits stepped out from the shadows behind the stage. Grant let go as if burned. "Let's clarify a few things," Amelia said, turning to the bewildered crowd. She picked up a remote. "Grant told you all that I was a charity case he picked up from the suburbs. He told you I was a nobody." Click. The screen lit up with an old photograph. It showed a younger Amelia standing next to an older man with silver hair, a man every titan of industry in the room recognized. That's Charles Sterling," whispered the CEO of Omnicorp, standing near the front. "The founder of the Sterling Trust, the man who practically built the shipping infrastructure of the East Coast." "Charles Sterling was my father," Amelia announced. Gasps rippled through the room. Grant looked like he had been punched in the gut. "What? No. Your last name was Smith. It was Smith when we met." "It was Smith because I changed it," Amelia said, turning to face him. "I wanted to know if a man would love me for me, not for the billions my father left me in the Sequoia Group Trust. When I met you, Grant, you were charming. You were ambitious. I thought I found a partner. So I used my inheritance to secretly fund your little startup. Who do you think gave you that first anonymous angel investment of $5 million? It was me." Grant stumbled back. "You? But I did that. I built this." "You built nothing." Amelia's voice cracked like a whip. "I injected capital every time you failed. I covered your losses. And when my father passed away 3 years ago, I officially took control of the Sequoia Group. I've been your boss for 3 years, Grant. And I've been watching you run my company into the ground while you chased skirts." "Hey!" Crystal Banks suddenly stepped forward, her face twisted in indignation. She clearly didn't understand the gravity of the financial situation. She only understood that she was losing the spotlight. "You can't talk to him like that. He's the CEO. You're just some jealous, frumpy housewife who got a makeover." Crystal looked Grant up and down, then turned to Amelia. "He loves me. He told me I'm the only one who understands his vision. You're just bitter because tonight was supposed to be our night." Amelia looked at Crystal with an expression of mild amusement, the way one might look at a yapping chihuahua. "Crystal, is it?" Amelia asked. "You know my name," Crystal snapped. "I do," Amelia nodded. "I see it on the expense reports every month. Speaking of which," Amelia pointed the remote at the screen. Click. A spreadsheet appeared. It was titled Unauthorized Executive Expenditures, Q3 2024. Cartier bracelet, $12,500. Le Bernardin dinner, $800. Four Seasons suite, $4,200. Tom Ford tuxedo, $6,000. Amelia stepped closer to Crystal. "That red dress you're wearing, it's vintage Versace, isn't it? Cost about $5,000. Charged to the corporate account under office supplies." The crowd murmured. Shareholders began to look furious. That was their money. "You're wearing stolen property, Crystal," Amelia said softly. "And since I am the majority shareholder, technically, that dress belongs to me. I'd ask for it back, but I don't like second-hand goods." Crystal turned pale, covering her chest with her hands. Grant tried to regain control. "This is preposterous. I am the CEO. I have discretionary spending rights. You can't ambush me like this, Amelia. I'll sue you. I'll divorce you and take half of everything." Amelia laughed. It was a dark, rich sound. "Oh, Grant, you really didn't read the prenup, did you?" "I signed it," Grant yelled, "to protect my future millions from you." "You signed a standard separation of assets agreement," Amelia corrected him. "What's yours is yours. What's mine is mine. You have $3 million in liquid assets, Grant. I have $4 billion. And since you've been using company funds for personal affairs, literally, I am freezing your assets pending a forensic audit." She turned to the stunned board of directors. "Gentlemen," Amelia said, "as majority shareholder, I am calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in the CEO." "Seconded," said Arthur Henderson. I vote yes," stammered Simon O'Connell, the CFO, desperately trying to save his own skin. "Yes," said Mrs. van der Hoven. "Yes," said the Omnicorp CEO. One by one, the hands went up. Amelia looked at her husband. "It's unanimous. You're fired, Grant. Security will escort you out. Don't go to the penthouse. The locks have already been changed." Grant stood there, shaking. His empire, his mistress, his dignity, all stripped away in 10 minutes. "You can't do this," he whispered. "I'm Grant Winston." "Not anymore," Amelia said, turning her back on him. "Now, you're just a liability." 2 security guards grabbed Grant by the arms. As they dragged him toward the exit, kicking and shouting, Crystal Banks quietly tried to slip away into the crowd. "Grab her too," Amelia commanded, not even looking. "She has a company credit card in her purse. I want it back." As the door slammed shut on Grant's screaming figure, Amelia took a flute of champagne from a passing waiter. She raised it to the room. "Now," she smiled, the predator finally relaxed. "Let's discuss the real merger." It was raining. Of course it was raining. Grant Winston sat on a park bench in Central Park, his tuxedo soaked through. It was 3 a.m. He had no coat, no wallet. It was in his coat check, which security hadn't let him retrieve. And his phone was at 4% battery. He stared at the screen. Call failed. Crystal wasn't picking up. After security had retrieved the company card from her purse and embarrassed her in front of New York's elite, she had vanished. She had jumped into a taxi without even looking at Grant. When he tried to call her an hour ago, she had sent a single text. "Don't contact me. You're broke. It's over." "Broke," Grant muttered to himself, shivering. "I'm not broke. I'm Grant Winston." But the reality was setting in. He tried to access his bank app. Account frozen. Contact administrator. He tried to order an Uber. Payment declined. He had nowhere to go. The penthouse was locked. His friends, the friends who drank his scotch and laughed at his jokes, had all turned their backs the moment Amelia revealed her net worth. They were businessmen. They followed the money. And the money had just walked out of the room wearing blue velvet. "She planned this," Grant hissed, clenching his fists. "She planned every second of this." He needed a plan. He was a shark. Sharks didn't die. They kept moving. He needed a lawyer. Not Arthur Henderson. He needed someone dirty. Someone who could find a loophole in that prenup. Grant stood up, water dripping from his nose. "I'll destroy her," he screamed at the empty park. "Do you hear me, Amelia? I made you. I'll break you." A passing jogger looked at him with concern, then sped up. 6 hours later, 9 September. The lobby of Winstone Dynamics was a hive of activity. Employees were rushing through the turnstiles, coffee in hand. Grant walked in. He looked like a wreck. His tuxedo was wrinkled and stained. His eyes were bloodshot, and he hadn't shaved. He marched straight toward the elevators. "Mr. Winston." The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, who usually looked terrified of him, stood up. "Sir, you can't go up there." "Out of my way, Sarah," Grant barked. I still own 49% of this company. I have a right to my office. He swiped his badge at the turnstile. Beep, beep, beep. Access denied. He swiped again. Access denied. Open the gate, Grant shouted, kicking the metal barrier. 2 large security guards, different ones from the gala, approached him. One of them was the head of security, a man named Mike, whom Grant had fired 3 months ago for taking a sick day. Apparently, he was back. "Mike," Grant said, trying to straighten his tie. "Good to see you. There's been a mistake. My badge isn't working." "No mistake, Mr. Winston," Mike said, crossing his massive arms. "You've been barred from the premises. Restraining order. Effective immediately." Restraining order? On what grounds? Workplace harassment, embezzlement and... Mike smirked, checking a clipboard. Attempted corporate sabotage. The board met at 7:00 a.m. They voted to strip you of your executive titles and suspend your shares pending the investigation. "Who called a meeting at 7:00 a.m.? Grant demanded. "I did." The voice came from the mezzanine level. Grant looked up. Amelia was standing there. She wasn't wearing the blue gown anymore. She was wearing a sharp, white power suit that cost more than Grant's first car. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked fresh, rested, and utterly in control. Next to her stood Simon O'Connell. The traitor. "Simon!" Grant yelled. "You backstabbing coward! You knew about the expenses. You signed off on them." "Actually, Grant," Simon called down, his voice trembling slightly, but loud enough for the lobby to hear. "I kept a separate log of every illegal request you made. I was acting under duress. Madam Chairwoman has been gracious enough to keep me on during the transition, as a witness for the prosecution." Grant felt the blood drain from his face. "Prosecution?" Amelia walked down the stairs, stopping safely behind the security guards. "The FBI is upstairs right now, Grant," she said calmly. "Turns out, using DoD contract money to pay for your mistress's condo is a federal crime. Something about misappropriation of government funds. It's not just a lawsuit anymore, it's prison." Grant's knees buckled. Prison? He couldn't go to prison. He was a billionaire. Billionaires didn't go to prison. "Amelia," he pleaded, his voice cracking. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure terror. "Baby, please. We can talk about this. I'm your husband. We have history. Don't let them take me away. I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever you want." Amelia tilted her head. She looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. "You're right, Grant. We do have history," she said. "I remember when I had the flu last year, and you told me to sleep in the guest room because you didn't want to hear me coughing. I remember when I made you a surprise anniversary dinner, and you didn't come home because you were working late with Crystal." She took a step closer. "I loved you," she whispered. "I really did. I hid who I was because I wanted to be sure. And you proved to me every single day that you didn't deserve me. You didn't even deserve the fake me." Sirens wailed outside. Blue and red lights flashed against the glass walls of the lobby. "That sounds like your ride," Amelia said, checking her watch. "Don't worry about the cleaning, Grant. I've hired a professional crew to sanitize the penthouse. I'm burning the sheets." The glass doors slid open, and 4 federal agents in windbreakers marked FBI walked in. "Grant Winston?" the lead agent asked. Grant looked at Amelia one last time. He saw no mercy in her eyes, only the reflection of his own failure. "Amelia!" he screamed as the agents cuffed him. "Amelia, help me!" She didn't turn around. She walked toward the elevator, flanked by Simon and Mike. "Sarah," Amelia said to the receptionist as she passed. "Yes, Mrs. Winston?" Sarah squeaked. "Miss Sterling," Amelia corrected her. "Call me Miss Sterling. and order everyone bagels. It's going to be a busy day." As the elevator doors closed, cutting off the sight of her husband being read his rights, Amelia let out a long breath. Phase 1 was complete. Grant was destroyed. But as the elevator rose to the 80th floor, Amelia's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She answered it. "This is Sterling." "Well played, little girl," a distorted, deep voice rasped on the other end. "You took down the puppet. But did you really think Grant Winston was working alone? He owed money to people a lot scarier than the FBI. And now that he's in jail, that debt belongs to you." The line went dead. Amelia stared at the phone. The elevator dinged. The war wasn't over. It had just found a new enemy. The CEO's office on the 80th floor was a testament to Grant's ego. Walls of glass, shark skin leather chairs, and a humidor filled with illegal Cuban cigars. Amelia stood by the window, looking out at the skyline she now owned. But she felt no triumph. The phone call had chilled her to the bone. "Simon," Amelia said, not turning around. "Leave the room." Simon O'Connell, who was currently sweating through his third shirt of the day, looked up from his laptop. "But Madam Chairwoman, the auditors are asking about the Cayman accounts." "I said get out," Amelia said, her voice low and dangerous. Simon scrambled, grabbing his files and practically running out the door. Once the door clicked shut, Amelia locked it. She pulled out a burner phone, a habit she had picked up from her father's paranoia, which was now saving her life. She dialed a number that didn't exist in any directory. "It's me," she said. "I have a problem, a cleaner problem." A deep, gravelly voice answered. "I saw the news, Miss Sterling. Quite the show at the plaza. I assume you didn't call to brag about your ratings." "Grant owed money," Amelia said, pacing the room. "Not to banks, to someone who called me on a blocked line. They said the debt is mine now." "Grant Winston was a gambler, Amelia. Everyone knew that," the voice replied. This was Dominic Hale, the former head of CIA counterintelligence, who now ran a private risk management firm exclusively for billionaires. He was the only man Charles Sterling had trusted. But if they called you directly, it means Grant wasn't just gambling with money. He was gambling with the company. "Find out who holds the paper, Dominic, and find out where Crystal Banks really is. She disappeared too easily." "On it. Give me an hour." Amelia hung up and sat in Grant's chair. It felt too big, ridiculous. She began tearing through his desk drawers, nothing but breath mints and vanity magazines featuring himself on the cover. She turned to his computer. The FBI had taken the hard drives, but Grant was lazy. He often kept backups on physical drives because he didn't trust the cloud. She checked the lining of his humidor. Bingo. Under the cedar lining, taped to the bottom, was a micro SD card. Amelia inserted it into her secure laptop. The files were encrypted, but the password hint was, "The day I won." Amelia typed in their wedding date. Access denied. She typed in the date Winston Dynamics went public. Access denied. She paused, thinking about Grant's ego. She typed in the date he met Crystal Banks. Access granted. Amelia felt a wave of nausea, but she pushed it down. She opened the folder named Obsidian Logistics. It wasn't a romance diary. It was a ledger. Amelia's eyes widened as she scrolled. Winston Dynamics hadn't just been moving consumer goods. For the last 18 months, Grant had been using his military contracts to bypass customs inspections. Crates marked medical supplies for aid relief in Eastern Europe. Crates marked machinery parts from South America. He wasn't shipping logistics, he was shipping weapons. And the destination for the payments was a shell company called Volkov Holdings. "Oh, Grant," Amelia whispered, her hand covering her mouth. You idiot! You absolute, suicidal idiot! Her phone buzzed. It was Dominic. You need to leave the building, Amelia, Dominic said, his voice urgent. Right now. I found the ledger, Dominic. It's the Russians, the Volkov syndicate. It's worse than that, Dominic said. I tracked Crystal Banks. She didn't run. She was picked up by a black SUV 2 blocks from the plaza. She wasn't just a mistress, Amelia. She was a handler. Volkov planted her to ensure Grant kept the shipping lanes open. With Grant in jail, the operation stops. The Russians are losing millions by the hour. So they want me to restart it, Amelia realized. No, Dominic corrected her. You're a sterling. You're too high profile to control. They don't want you to work for them. They want to liquidate the asset before the FBI finds the weapons connection. They're coming to burn the building down, Amelia. Figuratively or literally. Crash. The glass wall of the outer lobby shattered. Amelia stood up. She could hear shouting outside her office door. Not security. Screaming. They're here, Amelia whispered. Get to the roof, Dominic commanded. I have a bird 2 minutes out. Do not let them take you. Amelia grabbed the micro SD card and shoved it into her bra. She kicked off her high heels. She wasn't the grieving wife anymore. She was the daughter of Charles Sterling, and she wasn't going to die in a boardroom. She ran to the private executive elevator, scanning her retina. The doors opened just as the heavy oak doors of her office burst open. 3 men in tactical gear with no insignias stormed in. She's in the lift, one shouted, with a thick Eastern European accent. Amelia slammed the close door button. Bullets sparked against the steel frame as the door sealed shut. The elevator shot upward toward the helipad. Amelia leaned against the wall, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She looked at her reflection in the polished metal. You wanted to be the boss, she told herself, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead. This is part of the job. The helicopter ride was silent. Dominic Hale sat across from Amelia, cleaning a Sig Sauer P222C6 with a calm that was almost terrifying. He was a man of 50, with silver hair and scars that told stories he would never repeat. They had landed at a private estate in the Hamptons. Safe ground, or so they thought. We can't hide here forever, Dominic, Amelia said, pacing the library of her safe house. If Volkov wants me dead, he'll find me. I need to end this. You can't negotiate with Nikolai Volkov, Dominic said, without looking up. He's a butcher. He doesn't care about leverage. He cares about respect and money. Grant lost him both. Grant? Amelia stopped pacing. Where is Grant? In federal custody at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Why? Volkov needs the shipping lanes, Amelia reasoned. He can't use them if the company is under investigation. He needs a scapegoat, someone to take the fall for the illegal shipments, so the company and the roots can survive. And you think he'll accept Grant as the sacrifice? I think Grant is already the sacrifice, Amelia said. But Volkov needs the encryption keys to the shipping routing software. Only the CEO has them. Grant never gave them to me. Grant is in jail. He can't give anyone anything. Amelia smiled grimly. Unless he gets bailed out? Dominic frowned. Bail for his charges would be set at 50 million, minimum. Maybe denied entirely. Volkov has 50 million in his couch cushions, Amelia said. Check the court records, Dominic. Right now. Dominic opened his laptop. He typed furiously for a few seconds. He stopped. He looked up at Amelia with a rare expression of shock. He made bail, Dominic said. 10 minutes ago. Paid in full via a wire transfer from a bank in Cyprus. He's walking out right now. They have him, Amelia said. Volkov bought him out. They're going to force him to unlock the system, transfer the assets, and then they'll kill him. Let them, Dominic shrugged. Grant made his bed. No, Amelia said firmly. If Grant unlocks that system, the FBI traces the weapons back to Winston Dynamics after the merger. The Sequoia Group becomes liable. They will seize my father's legacy. They will seize everything I have. I can't let Grant unlock that system. So what's the play? We intercept, Amelia said. We track Grant. When Volkov takes him to the exchange point, we crash the party. 2:30 a.m. Port Newark, Container Terminal C. The rain had turned into a storm. Thunder rattled the metal shipping containers, stacked like skyscrapers in the dark. A black armored SUV rolled to a stop near the water's edge. Grant Winston was shoved out of the back seat. He looked worse than he had in the park. His lip was split, his eye swollen shut. He was wearing a cheap grey tracksuit provided by his lawyer. "Move!" the man behind him growled, shoving a gun into Grant's ribs. Grant stumbled forward into the rain. "Please," he sobbed. "I'll do it. Just don't hurt me. I thought we were partners." Standing under the shelter of a crane was a man in a long beige trench coat, smoking a thin cigarette. Nikolai Volkov. He looked like a university professor, bespectacled and calm, which made him infinitely more terrifying than his thugs. Next to him stood Crystal Banks. She wasn't wearing Versace tonight. She was wearing tactical black, her hair tied back, holding a ruggedized tablet. "Grant, darling," Crystal said, her voice devoid of the bimbo affectation she had used for years. It was cold and sharp. "Stop crying, it's pathetic. Just give us the biometric key." "Crystal?" Grant squinted through his swollen eye. You're with them." "I am them, Grant," she sneered. "Did you really think a 22-year-old model fell in love with a 45-year-old logistics nerd because of his personality? I've been Volkov's lieutenant for 5 years." Volkov stepped forward. "The code, Mr. Winston. The routing algorithm. Now." "If I give it to you, you'll kill me," Grant whimpered. "If you don't give it to me," Volkov said softly, "I will peel the skin off your fingers one by one until you can no longer type. Then I will kill you." Grant shook, his hands fumbling in his pockets. He pulled out a small titanium fob. "Good boy," Crystal said, reaching for it. Bang! A shot rang out from the darkness. The tablet in Crystal's hand exploded into plastic shards. She screamed, clutching her hand, dropping to her knees. "Ambush!" Volkov yelled, diving behind a shipping container. Floodlights from the top of the cargo cranes suddenly blazed to life, blinding the Russians. "Drop your weapons!" Amelia's voice boomed over a loudspeaker. From the shadows of the container stacks, a dozen armed mercenaries emerged, Dominic's team. They had the Russians surrounded. Amelia stepped out into the light. She was wearing a Kevlar vest over her white suit, holding a pistol. She didn't aim it at Volkov. She aimed it at Grant. "Amelia!" Grant cried out, relief washing over him. "You came! Oh God, you came to save me! Shoot them! Shoot Crystal!" "Shut up, Grant!" Amelia shouted. She looked at Volkov, who was peering out from behind the steel crate. "Nikolai Volkov!" Amelia called out. "I'm Amelia Sterling. I own the dirt you're standing on, and I own the man you're trying to rob." Volkov laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "Miss Sterling, you have fire. I like that. But you are out of your depth. You have 10 men. I have an army on the way." "Maybe," Amelia said, "but I have something you want more than the routing codes." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the micro SD card. "The ledger," she said. "Every payment, every bribe, every government official you own in New York, Moscow, and DC. If anything happens to me, or if that man unlocks the system, this card uploads automatically to the FBI, Interpol, and the New York Times." Volkov's smile faded. He stepped out slowly, his hands raised. "A stalemate," Volkov nodded. "Smart girl. No stalemate, Amelia said. A trade. What do you want? I want the debt cleared, Amelia said. Winston Dynamics owes you nothing. You walk away. You never touch my company again. And in return? Volkov asked. In return, Amelia said, I don't upload the drive, and... She looked at Grant, who was shivering in the mud, looking between his wife and the mobster, like a lost puppy. And what? Grant asked, hopeful. We go home. Amelia looked Grant in the eye. And, Amelia finished, addressing Volkov, I leave him here with you. Grant's scream was primal. What? Amelia, no, you can't. They'll kill me. You tried to destroy my father's legacy, Amelia said coldly. You cheated on me. You humiliated me. And you funded terrorists with my money. I'm not saving you, Grant. I'm just saving the company. Amelia, please! Grant crawled toward her, grabbing her ankle. I love you. I'm sorry. Amelia kicked his hand away. Goodbye, Grant. She began to back away, her team forming a protective wall around her. Volkov watched her go, a look of genuine respect on his face. He then turned his gaze to Grant, who was sobbing in the mud. Well, Mr. Winston, Volkov said, adjusting his glasses, it seems your wife is the better businessman. Crystal, get the pliers. Wait! A massive explosion rocked the pier. A shipping container 3 stacks high above them burst open. Fire rained down, separating Amelia from her team and Volkov from Grant. A third party had entered the chat. Black helicopters swarmed over the harbor, searchlights beaming down. Federal agents! A voice boomed from the sky. Nobody move! Amelia fell back against the hard concrete, her ears ringing. The FBI had tracked Grant's ankle monitor, the one condition of his bail she hadn't known about. Chaos erupted. Volkov's men opened fire on the feds. Dominic grabbed Amelia by the vest. We have to go! Now! Dominic yelled, dragging her toward the water where a speedboat was waiting. Amelia looked back one last time through the smoke and fire. She saw Grant standing in the middle of the crossfire, laughing hysterically, his mind finally snapping. He looked at Amelia, his eyes wide and vacant. I'm the King of New York! Grant screamed into the flames. Then a stray bullet, or perhaps an intentional one from Crystal, caught him in the chest. Grant Winston fell backward into the dark waters of the harbor and disappeared. 6 months later, the skyline of New York City hadn't changed, but the name on the tallest tower in the financial district had. The heavy, blocky letters spelling Winston Dynamics were gone, dismantled piece by piece. In their place, sleek, illuminated script read, Sterling Global. Amelia Sterling sat in the office that used to terrify her. She wasn't wearing the oversized t-shirt or the sweatpants anymore. She wore a tailored crimson suit, her hair cut into a sharp, asymmetrical bob that screamed authority. Madam Chairwoman? Simon O'Connell stood in the doorway. He knocked timidly, even though the door was open. He knew better than to just walk in. Yes, Simon. Amelia didn't look up from the tablet she was reviewing. The quarterly earnings report is in. Since the rebranding and the new transparency protocols you implemented with the DoD, our stock is up 18%. The board is ecstatic. Of course they are, Amelia said, finally glancing up. Her eyes were clear, devoid of the fear that used to haunt them. Money tends to make people happy, Simon. Tell them their dividends will be paid on Friday. And Simon? Yes, ma'am? Don't call me chairwoman. It makes me sound old. Call me boss. Yes, boss. Simon nodded vigorously and backed out of the room. Amelia stood up and walked to the window. It was raining again, just like that night in the park. But she was dry. She was warm. She was safe. The last 6 months had been a blur of lawyers, federal agents, and press conferences. The FBI had swept the pier. They found the bodies of 3 Russian mercenaries. They arrested Crystal Banks 3 miles away, trying to hotwire a car with a shattered hand. She was currently awaiting trial for arms trafficking, conspiracy, and attempted murder. The ledger Amelia had handed over had been the final nail in the coffin for the Volkov Syndicate's New York operations. As for Grant, the divers had searched the harbor for weeks. They found his shoe, they found his jacket, but they never found the body. The official report listed him as presumed dead. Amelia pressed her hand against the cold glass. Part of her wondered if he was out there. Maybe he had washed up on a Jersey shore, amnesiac and broken. Maybe he had been pulled out by a fisherman. But most likely, the weight of his own sins and the heavy currents of the Hudson had finally dragged him down. Her private phone buzzed. It was Dominic Hale. "You have a visitor in the lobby," Dominic said. "Unscheduled." "Who is it?" "A lawyer. Claims to represent the estate of Grant Winston." Amelia frowned. "Send him up." 5 minutes later, a small, balding man in a rumpled suit entered. He looked nervous. He was holding a thick manila envelope. "Miss Sterling," the man stammered. "My name is Mr. Finch. I was instructed to deliver this to you in the event of Mr. Winston's death." "Instruction by whom?" Amelia asked. "By Mr. Winston himself. About a year ago. He updated his will without telling you." Amelia felt a chill. Grant, updating a will? Grant didn't believe in death. He thought he was immortal. "Leave it," Amelia said. Mr. Finch placed the envelope on the desk and fled. Amelia stared at it for a long time. Was this a final trap? A confession? She picked up her diamond letter opener, the same one she had used to sign the takeover papers, and sliced the envelope open. Inside was a single piece of paper and a small velvet box. She unfolded the letter. It was handwritten in Grant's messy, arrogant scrawl. "Amelia, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Probably a heart attack from stress, knowing how hard I work. Or maybe a plane crash. I live fast. I know I've been hard on you. I know I haven't been the husband you wanted. But I did it for us. I built this empire for us. I'm leaving you the onyx cufflinks, the ones you always liked. Sell them if you need money for groceries. I know you're not good with finances, so try not to spend it all at once. Love, Grant." Amelia stared at the letter. Even from the grave, he was patronizing her. Even in death, he thought she was helpless. He had no idea she was the one who had funded him. He had no idea she was the one who had destroyed him. She opened the velvet box. Inside were the onyx cufflinks. She didn't cry. She didn't feel a pang of loss. She felt nothing. She walked over to the trash can. She dropped the letter inside. Then she took the cufflinks and walked to the window. There was a small ventilation slat at the bottom. She opened it. The wind howled, smelling of rain and city grit. She held the cufflinks out over the edge, 80 stories up. "You were right about one thing, Grant," she whispered to the wind. "I am cleaning the house." She opened her fingers. The cufflinks fell, tumbling down, 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 disappearing into the concrete jungle below. Amelia closed the window. She turned back to her desk, where a stack of merger proposals for a European shipping line was waiting. She picked up her pen. The mistress was in jail. The husband was gone. The investor had finally taken her seat at the head of the table, and dinner was served. Wow. That is the story of how Amelia Sterling went from a silenced wife to the most powerful CEO in New York. She proved that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's just the calm before the storm. Grant Winston thought he could throw her away like trash, but he forgot that one person's trash is another person's treasure, or in this case, another person's boss. What do you think? Did Amelia go too far by leaving Grant on that pier? Or did he get exactly the karma he deserved for betraying her and endangering the country? And do you think Grant is really dead? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, betrayal, and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We drop new dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful who you step on your way up. They might be the one holding the ladder.